Okay, I'm going to open the January 14th meeting of the Middleton Plan Commission. It's 7 o'clock. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Adams.
Here.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
Paniro.
Here.
Paulson.
Here.
Summers.
Here.
And Sonntag is present.
Thank you. Okay, next are about 3 public hearings that we have to go through. First one is a request to rezone property north of 2100 Bristol. That's the high school. And that's from Conservancy to Parks and Recreation for the baseball field renovation. Is there anybody here that would like to address Plan Commission on the public hearing? I see nobody on Zoom. Okay,
Before you close it, do we have any statements?
There was a statement included in the packet from Smith.
and you want to read it?
They were opposed to rezoning Conservancy land.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, then I'll close that public hearing and open public hearing number 2, which is a request to rezone various lots in the planned unit development of Red Tail Ridge subdivision. Is there anybody here that would like to address Plan Commission on that public hearing? Anything in writing?
No.
Okay, I will close that public hearing. And we'll move on to the public hearing for the conditional use of the stormwater management facilities in the Conservancy zoning district for Pheasant Crossing subdivision. This is a little different, from my understanding, from our normal procedure for a public hearing, in that city staff first presents the application and related documents into the record, and then we can ask, as a Plan Commission members, questions of staff. Do you have that, Mark?
Sure. Thank you, Chair.
Sonntag?
I was gonna say Mr. Chair, and then it's on. Say
Hey, you.
So this is the public hearing. Stormwater management facilities. Pheasant Crossing subdivision. The land use is identified as a conditional use in this zoning district, which is why this is before you tonight. Are there any questions about the hearing notice or the staff report that are in the paper or in that we're entering into the record? We can ask questions later on too. The applicants are here. I don't know if there's anyone here who wishes to speak about this request or not. I don't know if there's any applicants here actually, for that matter. I just assumed some of them were, but they're not.
They called and I told them I didn't think they needed to.
Oh, okay. And then we did not receive any public statements prior to the hearing. So that's all I have for the
Okay.
record. So you just open it to the public.
All right, then, the next procedural thing that we have to do is the applicants or representative provide a statement or presentation. They're not here. So the Plan Commission members and attendees can ask questions of the applicant, but they aren't here. So that takes us to step 3, which is the attendees provide testimony. So is there anybody here that would like to provide testimony? I assume none. So I think we don't need to rebut any applicant's testimony. So I will look for any other public input. Nobody here. I will then close the geez, I'm losing my train of thought already. Public hearing on that issue and move to approval of minutes from December 10th.
Correction, that was one of the commissioners pointed out to us, and we've already made that change.
Any other changes, additions, deletions? Hearing none, I will declare the minutes approved. Let's move on then to agenda items. And this one, Aaron's going to get off of Zoom. And this is the the design review for Kickback. It's 7622 Lisa Lane. You want to give us a review of that?
Yeah, I can get a give an overview. So this is at the Aviary Apartments in their Middleton Market area. It's the first kind of tenant in that space. They did send me an updated just coloring of the sign. So the sign is the exact same size. I think it's really just that outline that is changed to a black color instead of that orange color. So otherwise, you know, it's a pretty minimal sign and it fits all of our sign requirements. So we're recommending approval.
Or motion?
Just a quick
Yeah, go
question
ahead.
for staff. The sign is lit.
Mhm.
It looks like, are there restrictions in the sign ordinance as to the times of day that it's lit?
I don't recall any specific times for that.
The only reason I ask is because it's directly across the street from family housing and it might be appropriate for the sign to be lit during work hours or some other restriction that made sense to the commission.
Well, the other option is to see if anybody complains about it. Leave it, I mean, if they want to leave it lit all night. I mean, there's other signs around the city that are like that. I understand it's across the street from that multifamily, and that probably is a little bit of a concern, but depends on, I think most of these signs now are LEDs, aren't they? I don't know.
Yeah,
I think,
Our lighting ordinance standards have some limit on how far the light can exceed outside the, I forget the
Perimeter.
term, right, but
perimeter of the,
perimeter?
yeah, lots. So I don't know if there's any issue with that, but you know, if we get complaints, we can address it at that point too, but I doubt that we will.
Another suggestion, you could add a condition that it comply with the lighting ordinance, which would just give us another chance to review that again to be sure that there's no spillover.
Is this in the PDD? So does the PDD contain any reference to our sign designs? Probably not, since it was adopted before the change of the sign code. We might not be able to do anything, but just for Randy's point, we might want to think about hours of signage when it abuts another residential property.
Maybe, well, or you, I mean, maybe you could put in there, request that the applicants consider extinguishing the sign during, not extinguishing, but you know what I mean, shutting it off during business hours.
Flashing sign, lots of lights and things.
I'm not sure how it's going to be. It's hard for me to visualize that and to understand that. I like, I certainly liked Abby's suggestion that we just have a condition of approval that the sign in addition meets our lighting ordinances.
So is that a motion?
That is a motion. I'll second that.
Discussion? Sorry, Lisa.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to say two things. First, on logistics, it's hard to hear a lot of the commissioners and staff at various points. So I don't know if it's that your mic is cutting out because it's faulty, or your mic is cutting out because maybe somebody else in the room is speaking and taking priority, you know, from the system. Anyway, just please be aware of that and try to speak into the mic. And then second, I prefer Abby's suggestion rather than requesting anything of the applicant. I think, you know, if we request something, that leaves open the possibility of them saying, no, sorry, we can't do. But I believe that a business like Kickback, which is a bar, should be able to have their sign on at least during business hours and afterwards to some amount of time.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other discussion? Mark, do you want to read that back?
So the motion is to approve the sign design and placement contingent on the sign adhering to the
All in favor?
So, sorry to interrupt, but right there, Mark cut off mid-motion.
That's because he's thinking and talking at the same time.
No, I was right by, I mean, I'm a foot from my mic, so I don't know.
Okay,
Do you hear a difference now? When
I
I'm
hear you now. I hear you now, but you started to read the motion and then halfway through it cut out. And I don't know if it's just me and maybe perhaps Commissioner Summers could weigh in and let everyone know if it's just on my end, but I can hear muffling, like a muffled sound.
Well, I wonder if it's like if I turn my head, do you hear me now? Or is this better?
It might be just turning the head away from the microphone. Commissioner Summers is abstaining on this item, but we can ask.
Oh, okay. And Abby, I could hear you not through your mic.
You could not hear me through my mic?
Now I can hear you through the mic, but before when you were just talking now, it was being picked up by somebody else's mic. So just something to be aware of. I promise I won't interrupt every time something is said that isn't audible, but I mean, it's not going to be audible on the video
I'm
either.
turning you off, Lisa. No, no, I'm kidding.
Daphne is filling in on tech tonight because our video people were unavailable.
Okay, so back to all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Is that a vote in favor from everybody? Okay, I
Yes,
just,
it was a delayed aye from me.
Oh, thank you. All right, item 2 on the agenda is the sign design review for Relief Mental Health. Recommendation from staff is approval? No, what is it? Yeah, approve. Discussion? Or first of all, is there a motion? We should be having a motion first and then discussion, that's all.
This is Teniro. I'll move approval of the sign for Relief Mental Health at 8333 Greenway Boulevard, Suite 240.
Is there a second from Kurt? Okay. Any discussion?
I mentioned this to Daphne earlier, I think staff, the modified staff recommendation is to encourage the terminology to improve the sign design and placement. So and that was okay with Daphne, if that's okay with you, Alder Haniro.
Can you say that again, to improve the site design and placement?
The sign design and placement.
So that's not really approving the sign. Oh, you want to approve, not improve. Sorry, guys. Yeah,
Approved design and placement.
we didn't specify anything about placement for the kickback sign. Is that different for some reason?
I guess I had documented it that way. I didn't mention it, I guess. So the minutes indicate that it was approved that way. I apologize for not mentioning it.
Part of the design? I mean, we get an
Well-
application that shows what it looks like and where it is, so it's all one.
But I mean, somebody could in the future say they want to move the sign to a new location. And I guess what I'm trying to do, I'd like to tweak the sign code in the future to give some more leeway for administrative approval of signs so they don't have to come to the plan commission. And so if the design changes or if the location of the sign changes, then that would come to the plan commission. But if it's basically working with the existing, I just have felt that it would be, I just am trying to anticipate some minor changes we're going to make in the future. Which is why I thought of this yesterday when I mentioned it to Daphne. So if you would rather go with the original language, that's fine. I'm not going to.
I have no concerns about changing, but again, if we didn't do this for the kickback, it's not in the staff memo, and I'm content. I think the design and the placement go hand in hand.
All right, then just stick with the staff recommendation. That's fine.
Is this sign its own color, or is the color basically the background of the building? That's what I couldn't understand here. Because the picture makes it look like it's just words on the building without you know, a background, but is it a background?
It looked to me like if you look at the upper left,
Yeah.
it looks like they show the side view and it shows like a panel there. I
Yeah.
took that to mean that the panel and was purposely the same color as the building.
I believe in the description, it says there's a backer panel, so I believe what Randy was thinking is correct.
I'm Dan from Grant Science.
Yes.
I'll address anything
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you
come on up
wanna
here,
go
Dan.
to
if I
the-
can.
That would be great. Yeah, thanks for coming, Dan.
So I'm Dan Pichakowski from Grant Signs. I will address any questions there are about the sign. The question that appeared to have come up is the construction of the sign. The sign does consist of an aluminum backer panel that the letters are then put on the backer panel. And so that entire sign structure, if we want to call it that, of 14 feet long and about 3'9" in height, would be a single unit that would be installed. The intent is to make the background of that backer panel closely approximate the building color.
Very good. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I think we have a motion as stated. Is that correct, Mark? Okay, it's all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 3 is sign design review for Astro Pack at 8820 North Greenview. And the recommendation from staff is approval as submitted, contingent upon approval of landscaping plan.
This
First of
is
all-
Haniro. I'll move approval of the AstroPack sign at 8820 North Greenview Drive as submitted, contingent upon staff approval of a landscaping plan.
Is there a second?
When's the second?
Okay, discussion. Hearing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda is the request to rezone property north of 2100 Bristol, that's the Middleton High School, and west of 2403 Park Lawn. That's from Conservancy, to Parks and Recreation. The recommendation from staff is to provide information to guide staff in developing findings of facts for consideration of at the next meeting. So what did you have in mind with that, Abby?
Well, I wanted us to hold the public hearing, and our new practice is that we do not typically take action the same night as the hearing. So if there were any comments submitted, I wanted the plan commission to react to those. Obviously, we didn't receive any public comment. This is a pretty straightforward rezoning request at this point. It was previously before the plan commission for a rezoning to institutional, which was a much more land intensive use that had an 80% impervious surface standard, which the city was uncomfortable with. Staff worked with the applicants, and actually the city council amended the lease that we have with the school district for this property to permit the school district to apply for the Parks and Rec zoning, which has a maximum impervious surface of only 25%. This rezoning request, unlike the one that was previously submitted, is consistent with the city's land use map. So our staff is in support of the rezoning, and if there are any details or any additional information that you'd like to have included in the findings of fact for your review of the next meeting, just you can provide that back to us now.
So any feedback?
Are the parcel boundaries the same as what was previously presented to us?
There is a slight change. The parcel boundary now reflects the exact lease area with the school district. So it's actually showing on the screen here as parcel 2. That's the area that is included in the rezoning request.
And how are you able to, would we be able to see a comparison between the two? And is it a matter of a foot or two here or there, or is it?
It really is, the way that we had prepared the last legal description is we actually had our staff and school district staff go out and field mark the boundaries, along the creek corridor, which we used to draft a separate legal description. But now that we're looking at this new zoning classification, the school district is able to
I'm sorry, we can't hear what Abby is saying.
Yeah, I can't hear anything at
It-
all, and it keeps happening from person to person, just so you guys know for your recording and
Yeah, it
everything.
ended with Abby saying the school district should be able to.
Mike? I'm borrowing Chair Sonnentag's mic. I hear a little bit of feedback now, but what I was saying is the school district should be able to meet the 25% impervious surface standard with the land that is already being leased to them, showing on the screen as parcel 2. So there are no changes being proposed to the land lease, aside from the change that the council already made to permit the school district to apply for this rezoning. Otherwise, the area that is being leased is consistent with the area that is being proposed to be rezoned.
So there's nothing. Doesn't sound like we can-
No, you're-
This week, do that next time.
No, you're not mic'd.
Good point.
Preferable.
Well, I was at one time. So there's nothing for us to vote on tonight because of the way this is written. We're waiting till the 28th to vote. Yes, okay. So is there any other input?
Alder Haniro and Commissioner Summers have their hands raised. I don't know if that's residue from.
Is that left over?
It's not, no residue. I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So just to be clear, parcel A doesn't line up with the boundaries of the parcel that, or the area that's zoned conservancy, correct?
Can you repeat the question?
Am I breaking up too?
No,
Sorry.
but I didn't hear, I heard you say parcel and then something and I wasn't parcel.
Okay. What I'm wondering is, does any part of parcel A, all of parcel A is being changed to not be conservancy, correct?
At various places in the staff report, there's a reference to parcel A.
Which
But
is parcel 2.
Shows parcel 1 and parcel 2.
Okay. What I'm asking is, will any of this, I'm really interested in the environmental corridor delineation. So is any of parcel 2, which is also known as parcel A, is any of that still in what is technically in our zoning map, an environmental corridor?
My understanding from CARPC is no. So I did reach out to CARPC to clarify that, and I gave them information on the project that the school district is proposing. And I also gave them the site plan for the project, and the CARPC staff reviewed it and got back to me and said that they had no concerns with what the school district was proposing.
Okay, and I appreciate that info, but that's different than saying it's not in an environmental corridor. And the reason I'm asking is because it looks like on our zoning map, and it's kind of hard to tell, maybe it's just my computer, but it appears that a big chunk of this parcel and actually other parts of Middleton High has some environmental corridor in it. And I only note this because that brings in another set of requirements that the school district would need to meet as they develop the fields. And I just want to make sure that we know whether any environmental corridor is going to be affected by this construction project or any project really. And if so, I just want to make sure the applicant knows that our zoning code has some additional requirements for that.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I am guessing that the zoning map has not been updated since CARPC took a closer look at this. What we discovered when we first were reviewing this for the school district is not only was most of this property in an environmental corridor, but also a pretty substantial part of the high school was in an environmental corridor. And the environmental corridor boundaries are based on historical information, and they are further delineated when municipalities or the private sector reach out to them to ask for a more detailed boundary. And I'm actually looking on the CARPC website right now, and I don't think that they've updated their map either. But we can make sure that that's the case, because I did work with the staff there, and I am 99% sure that they said corridor anymore. I'm not 100% though, so I will check, and I will be sure that when we bring this back to the plan commission, both for the rezoning request, but as well as site plan review, because we do have a site plan submittal, and that is what CARPC reviewed, that I can clarify that at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Abby. And then finally on this page, that little pond that's in the corner, the bottom left corner, what is that and what's going to happen to it? And does that affect stormwater management at the high school?
That's a detention area that, at least it used to be on the back end of the baseball field, because I chased a lot of fly balls back there once in the day, and I think they removed it and changed it when they did the parking lot adjustment. So, but I think there's still something there that is a wet pond.
Okay, I'm just wondering if it's used, if that is part of the stormwater management system for the school, and if so, if they're gonna remove it, that could have an impact.
Well, the site plan review, which we have not seen yet, is that correct, Abby?
Yes, the new version hasn't come before the plan commission, but I expect it'll be on the next agenda.
Can we
Yep, we can talk about it then. Thanks.
note to make sure that the stormwater plan is reviewed for that, given its proximity to the creek?
Okay, I think we've beat that one enough to death at this point, since we're not voting on that this time. Let's move on to. Okay.
Just the feedback question.
As a finding of fact that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan land use designation in that area, and reflects a good faith negotiation between the city and the school district based on prior feedback. Not injurious to the public welfare. I mean, I know you have the standard language you have to use in the ordinance.
You good with that? Okay. All right, moving on then to item 5 is the site plan review for the multifamily buildings on eastern portion of 2159 Allen Boulevard, 2150 and 2170 Middleton Beach Road. The recommendations are to address sidewalk and pedestrian access policy issues outlined in the staff report. Waive section 10.07.20 subchapter 3C2B, whatever, related to the ground floor facade adjacent to the interior vehicle parking, and then approve the site plan review with 9 contingencies as outlined in the staff report. That's a mouthful. Can you want to review the staff report? Abby? Or
I can go over
Daphne?
it really quickly. So
thank you.
The major thing to decide tonight, I think, is this policy decision with the sidewalk, and where it is on the site. As it's shown in the plans, the applicants would like to keep it, on private property since it mainly serves, the residents that will be at that property. However, staff and Public Works staff specifically would prefer it to be in the right of way just because it will be eventually a public, use of that space. And so that's why we had our city engineer come up with just, these lines on the page to illustrate where it could be if they were to redesign the street and remove that parallel or remove the perpendicular parking. The way that it's shown right now does not include any street parking, so no parallel parking either. And that is because there are a bunch of trees that would basically be, right where that sidewalk would be. And so if we put the sidewalk on the other side of those trees, it kind of shifts everything down. So there would not be any street parking. The applicants have stated that, whether there is street parking or not, they, have planned to have all of their parking within their development. And so they think that they can, serve their residents completely with the interior parking and the parking to the rear. It's really, yeah, we'd really like some guidance from the plan commissioners on what you guys think and whether the sidewalk should remain on private property or be shifted into the right of way.
Can you pull up sheet C 2.0, the main site plan? And definitely, I just want to clarify, you said if they redesign the street, I just want to make sure that is there an actual plan to redesign that portion of Middleton Beach Road? Would it be affected by the construction? I didn't think so. And the applicants are here, right?
Yes.
So we can
You want to come up to the microphone?
go up to the microphone if you need it. And we did get a letter late this afternoon, right? Concerned about the grading of the road in terms of stormwater. And I wasn't quite sure what that meant, but we're taking a minute for everything to load here. Part of my question is the current road, if you look at the current plan, which is a couple sheets ahead, but you see that we already have a road that has kind of a bump out or a bump in, right? It's not a straight road, right where Daphne's cursor is. You see that?
Mhm.
What is that right now? It's not parking, is it?
Part, and it currently isn't striped.
It's not striped.
Finish striping it, that's perpendicular parking there.
And how many spots are there?
I don't have a count on that specific.
I'm sorry, can we make sure the microphone's on, please? Thanks.
The
Is it on? Yep.
And just to repeat that, I'm Drew,
yes, repeat. Yes.
Drew Mears with Vera Bicker Associates, civil engineer for the project. Those parking stalls are intended to be perpendicular parking stalls right now. I don't think they were ever striped as part of the city project. And then just immediately south of that, there's another bump in that's parallel parking as well, also unstriped.
Where's the bump in?
Just south of the fire hydrant there, a little bit further south.
Daphne, can you show
It's
it?
smaller.
So the city put those in?
Yeah, as part of the Middleton Beach Road reconstruction project to serve the park that was there for the soccer fields over there
The
previously.
soccer, yeah. And those are paved but not striped. And that's public. Does the city, I don't know, maybe this is for Public Works, but do they still want those? Do you want those there? I mean, it's probably expensive to rip them out, but
Yeah, I
that's
think part of that was part of
Yeah.
the original question is, what do we want Middleton Beach Road to do there now? It had a parking configuration and obviously no sidewalk that was not typical to a typical
yeah.
street section.
And we
Yeah, just to answer some of your questions, we're somewhat indifferent to those parking spaces, as Daphne indicated. We're planning to handle everything internal to our site.
Yeah.
The way we've proposed things is one, to preserve those trees. There's mature trees that, as Daphne indicated, are right kind of in this area. They would be maximally disturbed if we went this route and moved the sidewalk into the right of way. I think one other important point is if the sidewalk was moved out to the right of way, that we would be required to then add impervious surface to our site, which, as we just went through with water resources, there's a strong effort to substantially reduce impervious surfaces. So it's a contradictory effort, I would say.
So, but there's parallel parking. There's parallel parking on the southern portion of the site, correct?
Correct, yep.
So is it just a matter of the location of the sidewalk that's the issue?
I think that's the question at hand. Is that correct, Daphne? Yeah, and from our preference, and this also goes back to the understanding that the neighbors, in advocating for the design of this road as it was reconstructed recently, indicated they did not prefer sidewalks.
But did they, I remember them not wanting the parking, but accepting the parking because since it was used for a lot of soccer games and practices, they didn't want people parking on the street and blocking the street.
Right.
But if that use of the soccer field goes away, then the need for the parking on that side goes away. I was just trying to figure out the design. Does the parking staying or going affect where we could put the sidewalk relative to saving the trees? Could you, as the engineer, answer that?
Yeah, definitely. The only way to save the trees and to get the sidewalk into the right of way is to get rid of those parking stalls, just to get that little bit of space. I think there's a pretty small terrace between the drive lane of the road and that potential realignment of the sidewalk. So they're kind of cramming it in there to try to stay away as far away from those trees as they can. We'd have to work with the city arborist to see if that truly does preserve those trees, because I think you'd still be pretty close to those drip lines, and disturbing them again after they were recently disturbed could be damaging to them as well. So
How wide is the road without the parking? Because is it up to our standards, or it's been pretty, I don't know, the last time I drove on it, it's pretty narrow, right? Which is fine because it's a residential street. It's not a through street. It's,
They're all by themselves here. They said there's no access other than
yeah.
one
I mean, it's-
way in, one
it's
way
one way in.
out, so.
As long as the fire departments can get their stuff in there. Okay.
What was it originally? Any idea? I mean, it was very narrow.
15 at most.
I think it's wider now.
I mean, so my preference, just speak for myself. If we can get rid of parking in order to have the sidewalk meet our policy of being in the right of way rather than on private property, that seems like a good thing. But the highest priority should be to preserve the trees. Because if it's on private property, then there has to be an easement, right? And do you have liability then if people get hurt?
consider, I guess, one of our thoughts would be it would just be a private sidewalk.
We can't hear the speaker.
One other thought is that would be assuming that it's considered a public sidewalk. Third option would just be private and just be on private property. But it doesn't
So that would mean you,
really lead anywhere.
either way, you're obligated to maintain it, shovel it, yeah.
Stuff, and it's a considerable distance from the public right of way as it exists now than a typical public sidewalk would begin. And I would say too, beyond just the trees and preserving those, limiting disturbance on both sides of their, primary growth routes, whatever, I'm not an arborist, but whatever that is. If you can limit their disturbance to one side and then keep it a further distance away from it, in my mind, there's a much higher chance of them successfully remaining there than there is if we say, all right, we're going to do construction on one side and then also construct on the other side of those trees. And then I just don't want it to get glossed over. Moving that sidewalk to the public right of way would require us to add impervious surface to our site. And we just went through the whole exercise with water resources to substantially reduce that. So I That's just another.
Lisa, do you want to comment?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm questioning that. I'm trying to figure out why it would be the case that if we put the sidewalk, take that off the site and put it in the right of way, why that would increase impervious surfaces. It would seem that you would eliminate the sidewalk as part of your development, so that should decrease it, but maybe I'm missing something. And then the second question I have is about the memo on page 37. It says Public Works, in the paragraph above the little snippet from the plan, it says this option of including a curb in the right of, or, the sidewalk in the right of way, but no parking, would preserve the row of existing trees on Middleton Beach Road. So I'm wondering, it seems to me that's what we want, to preserve the trees. The city has a policy of putting sidewalks in the public right of way. So why is that not a good option?
I'm not saying they can't be preserved, I'm saying it's a higher probability of them.
And I'm sorry to keep saying this, but for the video of this meeting, I want to make sure that we can hear all the people speaking, and I'm hearing your voice, but it's very faint.
Yeah, I think this mic turned off. So I'm not saying that they couldn't be preserved in that fashion. I'm saying there's an additional risk to them if you go the route of actively constructing and disturbing the earth on both sides of them. Regarding the impervious surface, so it would cause us to extend further from the connections that we have for those walk-up units to that sidewalk, and then in totality, it would cause more total impervious surface. Perhaps some of that would not be on our site, but it would be more total impervious surface, which seems to be contradictory to the effort that we just went through with water resources to reduce impervious on our site.
If we can pull up the site plan again, could your engineer show us where those walk-up units are? I'm a little confuzzled as to where the walk-up units are relative to the sidewalk.
Yep, so right now we're showing pretty much everything on the east side. All those units on the east side will have their own individual sidewalk to our internal site sidewalk as it's shown right now through there.
I see it now on this.
So
Yeah.
we'd have to extend those, and I guess also the point on the trees, if we punch those all through to the public sidewalk, that would be additional disturbance on possibly all side of some of the more mature trees on the south end. So just, I think, keeping them on the west of that, whether it's public or private in an easement or just private property, would be the most beneficial.
I think there's two questions here. One is, do we want to have public parking along Middleton Beach Road? And the other is, does the sidewalk need to stay in the right of way, or can it be on private property and, as in the staff report, suggested in a easement? So, I mean, my initial thought was we should just accept the roadway as it's designed on the southern portion of the site with the sidewalk, or with the parallel parking, and just extend that to the north. So that there wouldn't be any perpendicular parking at all, but we would just keep that curb line that would extend to the north. You see what I mean?
The curb line right now that's in front of C1 on our graph, or the C2, the one below?
The one below, the curb line, the one below,
Can you scroll down?
it allows for parallel parking.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is parallel parking.
I will note that the reason that those are separated is there's a fire hydrant in between those two sections, but we can sure trim those.
Okay.
to be
Yeah. So I mean, one thing to do would just to be extend that line.
Right now, that curb line juts to the west a couple feet.
Yes.
Okay. So you just want a clean curb line
Well, if you had then we
of
could,
all parallel parking.
and
Yeah.
then we'd have parallel parking. One thing that would do would be to allow for a little bit better access for visitors and guests of the apartment buildings, because right now they've got to walk quite a ways around.
Yeah.
It would also provide some parallel parking for the residents across the street. So I mean, I'm in favor of making, I want to make sure that we get a public sidewalk. I think that's important for us. I would be inclined to push for parallel parking along Middleton Beach Road, and if we have to have a wider terrace to accommodate the trees, and that pushes the sidewalk into the private property, I think that would be acceptable in terms of, from my opinion.
And the road is not currently curbed, right? And we can do a sidewalk without a curb and gutter. I know we do it, but Public Works prefers that if there's a sidewalk, there's curb and gutter, but we're not talking about curb and gutter on the west side of Middleton Beach Road. Is that correct, Mark?
That I don't know, but one can also use a ribbon curb, which is just a flat curb, which we see Frank Lloyd Wright Avenue, Hillside. I mean, there's a couple streets in the city like that. And oh, it is. Okay. So that's not being an engineer, but I know that's a solution.
I was just wondering, is the developer amenable to overlaying the location of the private sidewalk with a public access easement?
I think that's something we could get comfortable with in this configuration as it's proposed, if that's the desire to make it a truly public easement. I think we're indifferent for that.
Can you tell me the distance between the outside edge of the sidewalk, the eastern edge of the sidewalk, and the ribbon curb where the parallel parking is? I mean, give me an approximate dimension.
Try.
Good engineer always has a ruler on him.
There is a swale that drains that, that's why it's a ribbon curb. So we have to account for that in the design. Perhaps full curb head would help with that.
We can't hear. I'm sorry.
Is the battery on that one die?
Yeah, I think we've got a red light over here, so it keeps turning off on us.
Lisa, this is all to get finance committee to approve for AV equipment at city count.
I can run out to Best Buy right now.
I think he was saying there's a swale in that terrace.
It looks like it's a smidge over 10 feet. Smidge. Yeah, there's a swale that drains Middleton Beach Road, because Middleton Beach Road drains for whatever reason away from the lake, west to east, and then it runs north to those inlets north. So we have to account for that, depression there. It's going to also comment on the city staff made a recommendation to wrap that public sidewalk around closer to the road. If you can scroll up, Daphne. That would impact the existing and ultimately proposed depressions there for stormwater. You can see the proposed dry detention, that's the private one. There's also not shown on this plan as a public version of a depression there that currently holds water for stormwater purposes. So that would change how that works. There would also have to be some sort of overland flow through there. So there would essentially act as a weir over that, or between those two basins.
And could that, where we see the magenta curve there that's shown, could we get an extension to the intersection itself so that anybody that's walking along the street could jump on the sidewalk or vice versa?
I mean, part of the reason the design is what it is because of water resources, stormwater management, minimal impervious surfaces. So there's been every attempt at reducing as far as we possibly can impervious surface. So I just want to make that clear. This is just going to add. It's a trade-off of stormwater performance versus convenience of access.
Good.
So you're opposed to this sidewalk extension? Because it seems weird to have two sidewalks so close together that just stop. If
If it's a public walk, we need to be able to the public to be able to access it.
Yeah, I'm struggling between feedback here and what we just got through with water resources is where I'm at.
Yeah, I got, John Cameron wants to make a comment and then Lisa does. Go ahead, John.
Back to the sidewalks going from the units to Middleton Beach Road. I just wanted to add that I don't think we've confirmed that those sidewalks running from the units east, if the sidewalk was east of those trees, we wouldn't run into any of those trees. Drew may know that answer, but there is a chance those units would have to like wiggle around trees and if it was on the eastern side of it. So just bringing that to the attention.
Thank you. Lisa?
Thanks. Back to the parking issue. So I remember early on, the Plan Commission made the policy recommendation to get rid of the perpendicular parking and go with just parallel parking on the street. When I supported that change, I was not thinking that there would be these cutout areas for the parallel parking. I just pictured it as street parking. And I'm wondering, is it really necessary to have, and I'm talking both on Mendota and on Middleton Beach Road, if the developer is not, or is I forget what word, ambivalent, about the parking on Middleton Beach Road being not just street parking, but actually, cut in, a curb that cuts in. If you're okay with not doing that, can we get rid of that to reduce the amount of impervious surfaces and increase the amount of terrace?
Lisa, I wasn't sure where, I'm not clear as to where you're talking about taking out the parking.
Right where that red line is. If you zoom out, Daphne, maybe I need to zoom out. So, yep, that area between the two red lines where the note is to make it easier to maintain the street. Yeah. Do we need that? And do we need the one a little further south that's not quite as deep in? And do we need the one on Mendota? Are those all necessary? And if not, can we make the road a little more narrow and the terrace a little wider in those spots? And if someone's speaking, we can't hear.
Lisa, I think it's a matter of, that's why I asked. I think it's kind of a matter of two issues. One's the sidewalk location, the other's the parking. And, my suggestion was to keep parking there, but make it all parallel so that we had better access for visitor parking to the new apartment buildings. Otherwise, any visitors if they park, if there's no parking out on Middleton Beach Road, they're parking in the back and walking all the way around the building. I'm not sure even how that would work in terms of handicap parking. So that was my comment regarding keeping the parking there. I am for eliminating impervious areas. So if you want to eliminate the parking, and we try to improve the pedestrian access for visitors into the building, then I think that would be another good approach.
Comments from applicants about the changes in the street?
I mean, I'll reiterate that, yeah, we're relatively indifferent with if that parking stays or goes. I mean, to the points in the staff memo and overall pedestrian access, perhaps if it stays, it assists that a little bit, deliveries, Amazon Prime, UPS, whatever it is. Maybe it helps a little bit with that. It's a narrow street already. If there's some zone there, that may help. I think we're relatively neutral on all those things.
Given the lack of traffic on that road, I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah.
I agree that we ought to straighten the line out and get rid of those cut-ins. I leave the sidewalk where it is as long as it's not interfering with trees, as John pointed out. Or if we have to go around them, I guess we have to go around them, but getting rid of all the cutouts, both on Mendota and Middleton Beach Road makes a lot of sense. Because there isn't a lot of traffic on those roads or on that road.
But Kurt, we gotta think about what the condition's gonna be, not the condition now. The condition now isn't there isn't a lot of traffic. The condition in the future is gonna be quite a bit different.
Think there's going to be more traffic?
Well, the traffic for the development is supposed to come through this
Yes.
internal
Yes.
access.
It comes
So it'll
down
be-
Mendota
it'll
Avenue.
Be visitors and deliveries.
Visitors and exactly. Yeah, right.
You couldn't eliminate all of the cutout, just like the perpendicular cutout, but you still have to have some cutout.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're going to have striping for parking, right? You don't have to have the striping for parking, but you're going to have room to park,
Stripe.
I
It's
think.
23 feet wide, right? That's 2 travel lanes is 20 feet. So that
Is that because we don't have enough width on the road?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna keep the parking there, that's gonna be cutouts. One, to prevent parking close to the intersection. That's why the first cut in happens, is to keep parking away from the intersection to provide that stormwater storage that exists there now. And then you're gonna have the cut in because there's the hydrant, fire hydrant there. And then towards the end, there's no cut out there. It just turns into the bulb for the turnaround at the end of the cul-de-sac. Same thing on Mendota. You're just preventing parking near the intersections is why it's cutting in. So you in order to keep the parking, you'd have to keep the cut in. If we want to trim the perpendicular back so it's just parallel, that'd be a different item, and just line those curb lines up on either side of that fire hydrant.
So I guess the policy issue is, from your perspective, does it matter to you whether the sidewalk is in private property or the public right of way? It doesn't change maintenance or liability, does it?
No, I think we'd care for it the exact same way. To us, we prefer it this way because one, you eliminate the potential of those odd wiggling extensions if we are going to meander around a tree. Two, it will likely result in less total impervious surface. And three, it introduces the lowest amount of risk to those trees. So there's likely still going to be pruning, and of course there's going to be a plan as to how we're going to care for those trees through the construction period. But by doing earthwork on both sides of those trees, you're just giving them less of a chance to make it.
I did notice there was a note in the plan set about trenching and the impacts of trenching on those trees. Is there going to be utilities that will be buried along the tree line?
Right now, there's one water service for that building, shown as cutting near a tree. There's a utility study that may suggest that water line move already. We're also looking at options that may move that line as well. So right now the plan shows one utility trench for water service 6 feet deep, but that could change.
Nothing that's parallel to the street?
Correct, no, just the one
Okay.
perpendicular water service.
Kevin, I see you're here. I think you could possibly come up and answer a couple questions about what kind of impact the construction would have on the trees.
We have an actual forester here.
Our city forester.
Yeah, Kevin Short, Assistant Director of Parks and Rec. How can I help?
So, I mean, the debate is, do we keep the sidewalk where it's on the drawing, just on the east side of the tree line, or move it out to the public right of way keep it where it is on the west side of the tree line, or put in the public right of way to the east side of the tree line? And how much of an impact on those trees would moving the sidewalk have if we move the sidewalk to the east? How much of an impact would that have on those trees?
Microphone.
I think I misread the due date on comments for this. So I got comments in today, seeing that they're due the 15th, I think. But what I did is on the initial conditions sheet, I put in our 13 street trees that I have on our inventory, gave you diameter sizes, the tree number and the species. And then just in the, I think the demo plan, put in notes that basically link to our ordinance of what's required for excavation. So my interpretation of our ordinance says that we need a 10-foot radius around each public terrace street tree. And I don't know that we'll be able to meet that with some of the sidewalk or the utilities work that needs to be done. So what I'd like to see is resolution of whether it's worth attempting to preserve the trees beforehand, or acknowledging that it's probably not going to be successful, and then having a conversation about what the replacement valuation might be for that.
And can you help me a little bit by explaining why you feel that it's may not be possible to save the trees?
If I probably need to be more familiar with what work is going to be done around the base of the trees. So if we're trenching for utilities or installing a sidewalk, that's within the what I'd call the critical root zone of the tree. If you're basically cutting a portion of the tree's roots, the chances of that tree surviving the next, say, 5 years are going to be diminished.
So it might be the case that we're just, not really, we're kind of wasting our time, because even if we move the sidewalk to where it's shown on the plan here to the west of the trees, it might be too close to save them anyways. Is that what?
Depending on the distance that you're moving it, yeah.
I think my point is regardless of where the sidewalk goes, there is going to be activity that's stressful to these trees because we're constructing a building there, right? So if you move the sidewalk outside of those trees, then you're just certainly going to disturb both sides. That's the additional stress.
And what does our ordinance say? It makes most sense to me right now to keep the sidewalk where it's shown on the plan. But that if the trees are damaged or destroyed in the process of construction, the applicant is required to plant new ones in that, because there's a terrace then between the proposed sidewalk and the curb, right? And the street trees would be planted in the terrace.
Yeah, so I don't have maybe the best answer for what exactly our ordinance says. There's information in there, and I put the notes on. We didn't get them in time for this meeting, but it's vague in this respect that it's replacement value, which may or may not be a direct stem for stem replacement. You're replacing a mature tree with a newly planted tree. So that's a conversation I'd rather have up front, is like, what's the possibility that these trees survive, or is it not worth attempting to replace them, and then figuring out a replacement cost ahead of time, rather than trying to preserve them and finding we're not successful in that.
But I don't know, it sounds like we're all in agreement that make it a public sidewalk, but on the private property, not on the right of way. Is that just a preference from Public Works, or is there some like public safety rationale for wanting a sidewalk only in the right of way?
We're not hearing the answer to Commissioner Paulson's question.
Sorry. I keep not moving this thing. The current city policy on sidewalks is every 8 years they look at sidewalk sections, and if they're out of whack, higher or lower, they replace them. And having the sidewalks on private property, I don't think that they can do anything with that policy. So that's the one thing that a public sidewalk would do is.
Well, if it's a public sidewalk on a private property with an easement, they could issue, if it's, if a route comes and it gets uplifted, then they would either send you
I
an
think
order
we'd
to
be
repair
interested
or
in,
repair it and send you the bill, right?
yeah, I would guess we'd be more proactive in repairing than the city policy would make us be. Yeah.
May I ask Kevin a question before he takes his seat? And that is the northeast corner of this property, there's a lot of vegetation, trees and other vegetation. Can you comment on, I don't, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, that's fine, but I'm just curious to know what of that area is preservable and worth preserving? Because I believe in the memo, it says that none of this was planted by the city.
Can you go to the L1 landscape sheet? Is that? I think it's the. So I have been out to that site. There's a swamp white oak, and I don't have the diameter of it. Do you?
No, it's
Oh.
big.
Oh, okay. And in that's a tree that's in the developer's parcel. It's not on the public right of way. But in conversations with Stormwater, with Eric Sorensen, I think that tree is outside of the area that needs to be dug for stormwater facility in that corner. Aside from that swamp white oak, the majority of the vegetation there is, volunteer species of buckthorn, honeysuckle, similar things that would probably be best taken out, given its adjacency to the Lakeview East and Jacobson Conservancy.
And I guess I would add, we did also go out there and look and identified, I think 4 or 5 pine trees that we would like to keep. In addition to that swamp white. So that's kind of what's dictating what we're doing in that corner, is to preserve some of that vegetation on that corner that's worthwhile saving.
And
The sidewalk would harm that?
Those pine trees for sure. I think probably not as big of an impact on the swamp white, but we would be definitely disturbing more of that by doing that wraparound sidewalk. Kind of stopping short of that swamp white with our current design to try to minimize that impact. And I know there's a comment to eliminate that parking stall, so that could even be further reduced and pushed west.
Are pine trees allowed in that location? I remember when Lake Street was being redone, there was conversation in Public Works about pine trees having been, or evergreens having been planted without the city's permission, and they needed to be, or would not be spared.
It's on private property, and I would think they're outside of any vision triangles through there. So I'm not aware of any other reason why they wouldn't be allowed.
So help us out here. Because I don't have the exact dimensions for me. If we require you to extend the sidewalk as shown in that kind of magenta on the staff comment, is that killing that swamp oak? Or is there a way to design that sidewalk? Because you can understand why, from a city's perspective, if you want a kind of neighborhood that looks like people live there, you want sidewalks to connect through. Unless we want to be a Shel Silverstein poem, sorry. Where the sidewalk ends, sorry. It had to be said.
Mark, you had a comment?
Well, I'm just thinking this through. If the commission is comfortable with the idea of the sidewalk in front of the building being on private property, and the logic being that it's basically used by the residents and their visitors, albeit with a public access easement. But if you're comfortable with that, with the sidewalk being out of the right of way, is it too much of a stretch to have the purple not even built at all and just rely on the private system altogether with a public access easement across it? So that anybody on Middleton Beach Road who does wish to use the sidewalk still legally could, they just wouldn't be going to the corner.
Yeah,
Well,
right, right.
I mean,
I would,
people-
I would make a suggestion that magenta line extend north parallel to the road,
Corner.
to the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah.
And then as it heads to the west, if we're losing the parking stalls there anyways, we could push that sidewalk a little bit further away from the white oak. To just give a minimum terrace there and give us a little bit more room but to maintain the connection. I think having connected sidewalks, I think it's important. And having this as much a complete street as we can make it.
I agree. And that's why we also asked for a sidewalk connection on the south end through to the adjoining park. And is that shown in the plan?
It's marked up in the, oh, are you talking south to the park or out to Allen Boulevard?
South of building C2.
We have a
Definitely can-
sidewalk shown that runs
Yeah.
along the south side of the property out to Allen Boulevard.
No, but in this purple, this one here, definitely if you can scroll a little east. That purple where it says instead sidewalk for public access to Marshall Park. Is that similarly impact a tree?
I mean, yes, there's another tree there that it would impact. I guess our other question would be, what is that lead? I know it's a park. But if you're leading it to grass anyways, what's the benefit of extending it and encouraging people to walk across the boat ramp? Instead of around where it might be safer to get around all that traffic of cars backing into the boat ramp.
Gonna walk that way anyway.
Huh?
They're gonna walk that way anyway, because they're gonna want to walk to that park.
They're going to walk to the park. Yeah, I just think we make the connection.
I'm trying to visualize the image of what's on that side of Marshall Park. Because
Yeah,
the
it
boat
just
launch
goes-
is a little further.
Well, I mean, the boat launch is right there. There's a little bit of a green space and there's parking stalls for the boat launch and then it's right into the boat launch. And the drive lane for boats going in and out.
Sorry to interrupt here. This is Commissioner Summers. I just wanted to make note that John has had his hand raised for some time in case he would like an opportunity to make a comment here.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. I just wanted to talk about this sidewalk going to Marshall Park. I mean, I echo what Drew is saying is that it's just a sidewalk kind of going to a grass area. There's no connectivity to a sidewalk system within Marshall Park. Currently, that's a pretty vegetated area and creates kind of a privacy buffer from the boat launch and people backing in and putting their boats in there. And then if you zoom in real closely, you can see there's just a footpath that everyone on Middleton Beach Road's been using for years. And I think adding a sidewalk that goes to nowhere is kind of, I mean, it's adding impervious surface too, and that's been the biggest complaint about from the neighborhood and water resources too. So I know it's not significant, but
Footpath?
yeah, it makes it feel cooler walking through that footpath there.
Can you come, Daphne, could you put the site plan back up, please?
Thanks, John.
So,
Yeah,
we could, as an alternative, we could just dye it into the bulb of the street. Right?
yeah, no, I think I'm convinced we don't need it now. But maybe we could explore later paving the path, but we'd have to have a shared agreement with the city of Madison. We just connect the road all the way through to the. Well, no, I'm kidding.
But then let's at least make a connection to Middleton Beach Road at the terminus of that sidewalk. Because we've got pedestrians that are gonna walk to the
Okay,
park.
yeah.
You see what I mean?
Do you see what he's saying?
Just,
Go ahead, Drew.
do you want it to go further south than kind of where we're showing it end to turn into more of the bulb, or just kind of
Yeah, well,
straight
I
in
would-
line with that
I
other
would move
sidewalk?
I would move it south enough so that you didn't impact the trees.
You see what the city's objective is here, is we want sidewalks to connect things together for neighborhood, and neighborhoods and property owners don't want sidewalks because they want to make it like their own private space. So, but we have a strong policy and planning framework that says we want connection. So we probably don't need it all the way to Marshall Park, but some connection into Middleton Beach Road, and definitely on the northeast side there, the curve and a public easement. That's kind of I think the city would be hard pressed to approve a sidewalk on private property that did not have a public easement, access easement. Yeah.
And how about a connection? Can we get a connection again to that intersection so that people can
Yep.
jump from the street to the sidewalk?
Well, we beat this for about a half an hour now, if not more. Does anybody want to make a,
May I ask for clarification of what Commissioner Bruce just asked for? The connection. I assume you're talking in the northeast corner with the magenta arc. Are you saying then that instead of putting in that arc, we just have a connection to the street
No, I'm
due
saying
east?
in addition to the arc,
Yeah.
we have a connection to the street, to the intersection there, right? So that because pedestrians now are north of this are walking on the street, or and if they want to walk to the park, they have the opportunity then to use the sidewalk and the public easement, but they need to be able to get onto that sidewalk.
Especially if we're gonna add a little more traffic onto Middleton Beach Road, we want people to be able to walk on the sidewalk, because right now they all walk on the street, but that's because it's low traffic, so, yeah. Are there other?
We need a
It looks like
motion.
he wants to move it along, but
we need a motion.
are there other things in the staff report we needed to discuss that wasn't just this pedestrian issue?
I would like to talk about the waiver.
Okay.
The request for the waiver. And also the articulation on the rear facade. Is the architect present to discuss?
Good evening. My name is Sixto Villegas with JLA Architects.
Thank you. We, at the last Plan Commission meeting, we suggested that you provide additional articulation along the west facade. And if I understand correctly, there's been no change to that other than a 4-inch offset? Is that correct?
That was the proposal that we had brought forth to the city to articulate that west elevation
and to break or to comply with that 40-foot dimension?
It's, I can almost guarantee people will not be able to notice that that's there, that 4-inch offset. And I still don't feel that that meets our requirements. Did you look at any other alternatives?
Sorry, what was that?
Did you look at other alternatives?
No, we did not. We felt that this provided that enough of a shadow line that you could differentiate the surface and along with all the landscaping that we're going to be putting back there. And the other item too is, I mean, there's so much articulation on the back of this building. We have those vertical elements. We have those gabled forms coming down to the ground. We have material changes on each end of it. I mean, we're talking about a 40, maybe 80 feet or so that it isn't.
What's the width to width link of the west elevation? This is 80 feet, you said?
I would say 40, that's a good question. Maybe 100.
That building must be 150 feet long.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. So I don't know if other commissioners saw the communication from Paul, help me with his last name.
Reichlger.
Yeah. I thought he had a very, an excellent piece of communication there. Here's another, community member that has looked at this from an architectural point of view and would agree that base is just, it needs some work. And I was really feeling that JLA could propose a stronger solution than what you did. I know that it's possible. It's a change of materials perhaps.
I think we can take another look at it, consider changing materials. We hear you.
One last comment,
John.
Yeah.
John has his hand up. He's chomping at the bit.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to address this too. The conversation, the city staff is asking to be able to administratively approve this as we make changes to it. Part of that is because we added windows on the north side of building C1 and the south side of C2 per your guys' request. I think the language in the staff report says looking at options on the west side. Alternative is a mural. I think we've spent a lot of time talking about this west elevation, and ultimately it's going to be screened by landscaping too. But I think what staff's asking is for them to be able to approve this administratively. I could be wrong on that though.
I did not read that in the report.
Yeah, because we want to move the process along. We don't
It's listed as,
get hung up over one.
yeah,
Sorry?
it's listed as contingency number 5 in the staff
Content
report.
Number 5.
There are significant concerns about that west elevation from other commissioners. I think staff's preference would be the commission make the determination. If it's primarily Commissioner Bruce, then he has in the past been willing to work directly with the staff and help us to review it. None of us went to a design planning school. We all went to policy schools, so we appreciate the expertise of the architects.
I have no design experience, so I'm fine with whatever Randy is fine with.
I don't particularly like to take on the role of the commission any more than the staff would want to. But I'm happy because I want to try to get this move along. Honestly, not trying to make it more difficult. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. I just really felt that we'd get a better proposal. and would like to see something, an improvement. I think we'd be not doing our duty if we were not to make comment and make some additional work done. The same kind of goes with those, the northernmost and southernmost elevations. What looks to me is what happened is it was, I don't think we really discussed this at Plan Commission, but this is an area where we have parking at grade. Our current zoning code does not allow parking at grade on a street face enclosed in a building because we want to have an activated street frontage. In this case, we have approximately, a third of the building that's activated and 2/3 that's not activated and it's a blank wall. And
This faces which street?
this faces Mendota Avenue. So what the applicant's done is moved one window over to the area where the parking garage is. And that's the extent of it. My suggestion would be, if we could get, one other window, just as we're looking at this drawing here, just to the right of that exhaust louver, and a canopy, make that entrance to the garage, parking garage, or the entrance exit to the parking garage, put a canopy and make that look like a building entrance. I think that would do it. I don't think it would take that much more than that. And I think residents actually might end up using that quite a bit because they can just hustle right in and out of the building there. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. And I think what we struggled with here is, we don't want to just look into parking either. I agree with the canopy aspect. It makes it more functional. But yeah, for alignment, a little bit of a differentiation and articulation, I could see an additional window there.
And I agree that we don't want to be seeing parking garage there with the lights on all the time. But there are glass options that can be used. So use a glass that's going to obstruct the view, but still gives the image of a window there. Yeah.
So we've had a wide ranging discussion about this. Does anybody want to put it into a motion?
I will make a motion. If you can pull up the staff report. Writes out the motion for us, so.
You want the waiver part or the full?
Oh, the full.
Okay.
Because that's part of the waiver, right? So I would move that the Plan Commission approve the site plan review with all of the following contingencies, the 9 listed there. And with the understanding that the administrative approval of the revised elevations would be staff consulting with Randy.
What about the waiver?
And that is the waiver not included in the?
So the waiver is a separate concern here.
Okay, and that the Plan Commission grant a waiver from those sections. And that we approve of the sidewalk on private property on the condition of a public access easement. Is that the right way to phrase it? We approve of the proposed sidewalk on the private property as shown on the site plan. But with a public access easement and with can we call it the magenta curve on the staff comments, with an extension north to Mendota Avenue. Did that cover all of our things?
And just a connection also to Mendota Beach Road on the south end.
And a connection to Mendota Beach Road on the south end.
But no connection to Mendota, to the Marshall Park.
No connection to Marshall Park.
And do we need to clarify what we're doing with the perpendicular parking that's there? Is that getting trimmed and going parallel?
I'll second the motion before we move
Yeah.
on to amending it.
We can just
Can we,
address that separately.
yeah, is that our decision or Public Works decision or the developer's decision? That's what I don't know.
I think Public Works would like the Plan Commission to make the decision.
And then I would also include in the motion that we recommend or approve trimming the cutout identified on the plan set with the red angles, right? To being the same
How about converting?
depth, conforming to the depth of the parallels on the south side of that fire hydrant.
We say that as,
And
I'm sorry.
and that removal of that extra paving at developer expense?
And this is just on Middleton Beach Road or on Mendota?
Lisa, I was under the impression that we were not really dealing with Mendota Beach Road at this point because most of the development that's impacted by the Mendota Beach Road is
Mendota Avenue.
or Mendota Avenue is future. So I was
So it doesn't include Mendota Avenue.
Right.
include Mendota
Okay.
Avenue. Thank you.
Middleton Beach Road.
Though there is a staff comment to eliminate the couple of parking stalls there, right where the cursor is. And I'd be amenable to that.
Yeah, and is that listed as? You scroll up, is that the yellow comments? Is that included in compliance with all engineering staff comments? Because it says eliminate the single stall.
Yeah.
So that's engineering staff comment. Yeah. And that's one of our,
Since
right?
this area is not grayed out in the site plan, I wonder if the developer can confirm that that work on the north end of the development won't be done in this first phase?
I think we defer to your preference. I mean, the connectivity aspect of it, I think, is important for this first phase, and it'd be helpful to have that sidewalk there, but I think we're open to a phased approach.
I see.
Sure.
Is that a friendly amendment? Or
I'm
or
gonna
the
have this on
original
the screen
edition?
in a moment. I'm actually logged in, so I'll display it in a moment.
The whole point is take time now, get it done, everybody's on the same page, then you can start. Because you're gonna try to start construction in the spring, right?
Correct. Yeah, of C1, C2.
While we're waiting for Mark to show his screen, may I ask for a clarification on contingency number 8? It's understood that the parkland fees in lieu and the park improvement fees are per unit.
Yes, that's correct. That's how we calculate the parkland fees
Sure.
and park improvement fees.
Yep, just want that to be very clear because it's a huge difference if those are the fees versus they are calculated with that amount per unit,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so these would be, per unit.
All right, so I would move to amend contingency number 8 to add per unit after each of the dollar amounts in all 4 cases.
To make sure that,
That there's no I know the developer understands this. I just, you know, the way this is worded does not say per unit for the fees. So that's my amendment.
Okay, specifically, how do you want that phrased, Alder Hanero?
per
Just
unit,
add the words per unit after each of the dollar amounts.
so it would read multifamily housing units with 1 bedroom or less, $1,741 per unit.
Yes.
Noted by an asterisk somewhere?
That's what I thought too.
I was trying to find where
The asterisk, it doesn't, it's like the sidewalk, it goes nowhere.
Ended though?
I think it's because I just copied it from our, you know, the fee schedule, and so there's an asterisk somewhere in there.
Which means per unit? So maybe it doesn't need to be an amendment, it's just a clarification. We keep this as simple as.
I've made the amendment. If anybody else seconded it, we can quickly vote on it.
Okay, because that just makes it even more harder to get this all to you. Okay. So this maker is the Haniro, seconded is Paulson. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're back to the main motion. Is there anything else we want to add? Or did we cover it all? Mark's gonna pull it up in a minute. We're just vamping and taking time until Mark pulls it up.
Do we need to,
Same time.
let's talk about the parking and the sidewalk on Mendota Avenue then. If their intention is to put that in, I think we need to resolve what we're doing there.
Oh, you want to put it in during the construction? In the first phase?
I think the sidewalk connectivity is important.
Okay.
While we're there, it's not much additional to modify the parking as proposed. If there's a phased timing component that you guys would be open to, flexibility is always nice, but at the same time, it most likely makes the most sense just to do it now.
So we could have our motion reflect that when the developer puts the sidewalk parallel to Mendota Avenue, to remove the, again, are we calling it the bump out or the cutout?
Let's go to the site plan. Let's go to the plan that shows that,
Just did. I'm displaying this. So can we maybe, would it be okay if we just discuss, is this how you wanted the motion to be? The yellow is what was added to the original motion?
Sidewalk and private property. Does the phrasing of 9, is that convincing enough to say that it must be a public access easement? You understand what I'm saying? Because this could be read to say, we'll place it within a public access easement. Well, there isn't a public access easement, so that doesn't. I'm just trying to make sure that when city attorney goes to, or the engineer negotiates a public access easement, it's clear, covers the sidewalk.
I think this is clear, but if you have additional language.
You could modify it to approve the placement of a sidewalk on private property, which will require a public access easement.
There we go. Yep, convert the perpendicular parking.
Is that usually a council action to accept the public access easement? I'm trying to remember how we normally do that.
I think it would be
Or is it-
reviewed by the city engineer and approved.
Yeah, I think it goes through Public Works and then council.
Yeah, and I thought it ultimately went to the council, so maybe that could be added with council approval of the public access easement. How about that?
No, I think it's fine to just say which will require a
Okay,
public
all right,
access
fine.
easement. And then we don't usually specify a process. Sometimes we do. Our
rest of
motions are never the same every time.
Well,
on 10, aren't we extending the sidewalk along Middleton Beach Road?
This first part is you wanted to have the sidewalk along the purple, if you remember the purple,
Yeah.
we wanted that to connect to the intersection. I thought I heard that
Yes.
Yeah.
stated. That's what that first line is of number 10.
And
provide-
to extend that from the purple line north to the street. Because you have here, it extend the sidewalk along Mendota Avenue to Middleton Beach Road. I think we should refer to the purple drawing in the staff report as shown.
Well, except the connection to the sidewalk network isn't shown.
Sorry, it's tedious, but
I think this is what you mean.
no.
I think it's the other way around. I think it's, we,
Beach Road sidewalk to intersect with Mendota Avenue.
And to the sidewalk that is parallel with Mendota Avenue. I could draw it out for you if that.
Well, can we, okay, if we can show the site plan again, do you need me to stop share, Daphne? You do?
So, yeah, well, or just write it as extend the sidewalk, the Middleton Beach Road sidewalk to connect with the Mendota Avenue sidewalk as shown in purple on the plan.
I thought you were getting at having the sidewalk that goes along along Mendota Avenue, extending that east to the intersection. I thought that's what I heard you say.
No,
Okay.
this is Middleton Beach Road. I was suggesting that the Middleton Beach Road one extend
Up to
Either-
Mendota Avenue.
up to Mendota Avenue. Either way actually
Works both ways.
Either way works, as long as we get that connection.
How about if it just says to extend to that intersection, and however that is done, we have that flexibility, but the point is you wanted
Sure.
that to be.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
fine with
I
that.
don't remember what those clusters are. Are those pine
Or-
trees?
Inlets, those are storm sewer inlets.
Oh, I see.
To the north would definitely be a better option. Up to Mendota, Middleton Beach Road extended to Mendota.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand now.
May I ask, Drew, I know you aren't doing the calculations right now, but to what extent will this addition affect your stormwater management? I hope we're talking a very small increase in impervious surfaces, so it's not going to drastically change your results. And I certainly wouldn't want this to have to go back to water resources.
Like you mentioned, I haven't done the calculations. From an impervious surface standpoint, I would think it would be fairly small, though it's just more area has very minimal detention. The other facet of it is it's going to require grading that reduces that existing storage area along the street, because we're going to have to grade that all up and fill it all in instead of leaving that depression. So that might have a bigger impact on the final runoff, leaving the site than the impervious surface increase itself, which is
And
why we can't.
given that, I'm sorry to interrupt, Drew, but given that, I wonder if the other commissioners would consider any other way to make the existing sidewalk plan in this corner acceptable. And I don't know if that's special signage or an informational kiosk or something to make it clear this is members of the public are welcome to use this sidewalk that goes around the detention basin. Because this northeast corner is a site that gets a lot of the run, it's part of the photographic documentation of the current site conditions that we get after every major rain event from residents in the area. And it may seem like a simple thing to add a sidewalk because it's the right thing to do, but maybe in this particular location, it isn't the right thing to do. I just throw that out there.
Go ahead, Randy.
I would, I just am having a hard time believing that this is going to be that significant of an issue in terms of their stormwater plan. If the applicant feels differently, so state so right now.
I mean, that corner is kind of our last spot to meet the very stringent requirements for the smaller storm events. For the large, flood causing storm events, it won't have a big impact. But on those small events, it certainly will. The other item is, now you're building a sidewalk across the overflow route of the stormwater pond, so there might be, additional icing concerns and maintenance concerns. We're gonna have to create a low point most likely on that sidewalk. It's not a great spot for a sidewalk. Perhaps there's some option where we can snake something closer to the road.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the
Right.
city would have concerns not having enough terrace room there. That portion's not great. I know there was a plan we had put together once that showed that, and I didn't like it then. I still don't love it, so.
Oh, I think we should leave the condition as we had previously stated it, with one additional comment that the sidewalk configuration at the corner could be approved by staff, with the understanding that the Plan Commission wants to encourage connectivity for the public, and we want to maintain, stormwater. We need to maintain your stormwater plan to the extent possible. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
So that we give them some flexibility. I could see where that sidewalk could go up almost close to the
Close to the
curb,
curb, yeah.
and then wrap around, maybe even die into the curb so that people could just walk right onto the sidewalk there and be done with it. So I think there's some options.
Yeah, and
I
I think,
like that change.
yeah, sidewalk connection. How about just say, provide a sidewalk connection from the Mendota sidewalk, number 10, to the Middleton Beach Road sidewalk.
And then I was adding without impacting stormwater, but if you want to just have it like this.
Well, and just to reiterate, there's a reason it's configured the way it is. Drew's worked with Eric closely through this whole process, and I think the jog and the bend back is there for the reason of maximizing stormwater performance. So can we have some more specific direction? Because it's not like we preferred that. That was kind of the result of maximizing stormwater.
Then I would suggest that the sidewalk be placed along the curb line at that intersection, and then come back and tie into your sidewalks that you have on your plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I would just ask Drew to give a take of what he thinks that would do.
I'd personally prefer the flexibility of, let's come up with something that has the least impact, so I can actually kind of look in, make sure, look at the models, see what has the smallest impact and what provides the best
Mark,
option.
right, that I would just have it provide a sidewalk connection. I would say have it provide a sidewalk connection from Middleton Beach Road sidewalk to Mendota Avenue sidewalk. Right, so we're just saying these have to connect. And then.
And they have to connect to the intersection.
And they connect to the intersection and city engineer approval.
And planning.
So
staff.
take out the as close as possible, and Commissioner Paulson, can you restate this part?
Yeah, so provide a sidewalk connection.
Not to call it the Middleton Beach Road sidewalk because it's not along Middleton Beach Road. It's on private property.
Okay, provide a sidewalk connection along Mendota and Middleton Beach Roads. Provide a sidewalk connection, yeah. Subject to planning staff and engineering staff approval.
But I mean, what you're saying is you want the connection, a physical connection between the sidewalk and the street. That's what you're wanting, right?
No, along,
But that's what's already shown is along both of them. The purple is already shown
right, but we're giving them flexibility as to how to make that work,
to make what work?
Make that connection
make the
work.
connection.
That's the point.
Yeah.
So you specifically want it to be as close to that intersection as possible. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to be precise. And I think the way I had written it was the most flexible and precise.
And I,
But if we say as close as possible, that's not giving them the flexibility to find a good way to do it without affecting or, you know, detracting from their stormwater management.
And I don't want the motion to include without encumbering stormwater management, because then that could mean they say, well, we can't do it, so we're not gonna do it.
right.
With this.
Yeah. Connection.
Number 11,
Yeah,
go ahead.
as approved by planning staff and engineering staff.
Just see George sharpening his pen. We're all wordsmithing emotion, but we want to get it right.
actually, I could see him falling asleep.
Yeah.
Connect the southern end of the sidewalk with Middleton Beach Road.
Yeah.
And convert the perpendicular parking to parallel parking with the curb.
Perpendicular parking along Middleton Beach Road. Then we have to decide.
I think it's along both.
Well, that's,
Well, and then that would be a separate
Motion.
component of the
I
motion.
think we need to
make sure
talk
we
about that,
discuss.
Lisa.
Yeah, so
But I swear, did we not discuss this and agree, I want to say a couple months ago, to this very specific policy question of what to do with the perpendicular parking?
That
I'm trying to remember if we did it on both roads or not, Drew?
That was my recollection on Mendota Avenue, and that's why we made that change to
Okay.
show.
Right.
Okay,
It's taken care of.
So,
then it's already in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then let's talk about let's go to the site, let's go back to the site plan, because let's talk about the sidewalk location then. What we had talked about, Lisa, at that previous plan commission meeting was creating as close to a typical street section as normal, which would be, drive lane, parking lane, street tree terrace, and then sidewalk. And here the sidewalk is abutted the parking lane. And I like the parking as it's shown there. I think other than the one parking stall that the planning or engineering staff has requested to be removed, I like having the parallel parking there, but I'd like to see the sidewalk shifted so that we get a terrace. And if we have to go with another easement, have that sidewalk in an easement, like we are on Mendota Beach Road, then to do that.
I had a different recollection, so.
Yep.
This area shown in gray here, which is what Daphne's showing with her cursor. I thought we said to get rid of that parking. And that's your terrace then.
That's what I thought we said. And to build on the allusion to going nowhere, I see these as parking stalls going nowhere,
Yeah.
at least in the first phase.
Yeah, that at the developer's expense, they would remove those. Is this your understanding, Drew? You would remove those parking spaces. That would become your terrace.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you guys direct us to not have any parking on Mendota Avenue. Yeah, that
Yeah,
could become.
and well, to remove the actual parking that's there and straighten out the road alignment.
Mhm.
I think that's a reasonable solution, particularly the amount of traffic that's going to be coming in and
Yeah.
out there.
We don't really need parking on that street.
I would say for the current proposed buildings, that'd be true. I think there might be some use for them. We're gonna have commercial space that's kind of a quick, easy, if I don't know if you had a coffee shop on the corner or something, it's a quick, easy in and out that would reduce total impact on the rest of.
So if you want to keep those.
Well,
parking-
it's
then-
quick and easy to get in, but to get out, someone's gonna have to do a U-turn somewhere or pull into the parking lot.
Yeah, just one other component to consider. I'd say potentially the intermediate condition of the western two lots is still soccer use. So that's
So
something.
you would
else to
need the
ponder.
parking.
Potentially. I mean, it's probably going to be less so than it is now, but
And I'm fine if you want to keep the parking, but then the issue is you have parking right against a sidewalk, to Randy's concern. Would you, if you move the sidewalk, because right now at the west end of the parcel, it angles up and angles north. If you just make it straight, then you've got a terrace.
Yeah, and I guess the reason I drew it that way, was, I mean, if you have parallel parking stalls, probably don't want a grass section between them. And with this whole stormwater, I don't want to have, 5 foot of sidewalk and then another 5 foot of concrete just to get connection to the sidewalk. That's
Yeah.
kind of where I ended up where I'm at. I'm open to suggestions if you guys are okay with parking stalls where you always have to cross a grass terrace to get to the sidewalk. I'm
Kind of a typical
indifferent to it.
situation.
It's typical residential street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not really like a
But it's not a residential
striped-
street.
Yeah, it's not
yeah.
straight parking in a residential street. It's just kind of free for all.
And this would be parallel?
That's how it's drawn now, That's not being make a giant section of concrete there.
Yeah. Well, then I'm stuck on that one. I don't,
Lisa, what was your recollection? Is that the parking would be removed?
Well, I mean, that was when I was advocating for going with the removal of the perpendicular parking, it was with the thought that there would be no curb cut in like that to accommodate parallel parking. There would just be parallel parking on the street.
Well, then I'm okay with that as well, but I think
the
it's going to
width.
take a wider street section then.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm also okay with no parking on the street. Again, I'm mindful of the need, since I'm on the Water Resources and Stormwater Management Commission. I am really mindful of the need to make sure we're demonstrating that we're doing everything possible to reduce impervious surfaces. And just seeing, I did not realize that this western part of the parcel was going to continue to be used for soccer while the first part of the construction or first part of the development is underway. So if there's a continuing need for parking in the near term, I could see why we would want to keep something there. But I see it as a missed opportunity if we can't make it work to get rid of that, and turn that into terrace, basically.
right now you're showing, Drew, 9 parallel parking spaces?
10.
10.
Well, it will be 9 when we eliminate that.
Yeah.
One on the island.
Well, presumably, if you do a commercial building on this western parcel, we would want you to have the parking on site rather than on street. I'm just curious why you still need those 10 spots.
I'm not saying they're needed. I'm just throwing out the potential intermediate condition of soccer field.
What would you say about not making any improvements to the site west of the main drive to buildings 1 and 2 here?
Yeah,
And
I
just-
think we're fine with that. And that's what I was getting at earlier.
Okay.
The
Just leave it-
flexibility
just leave it.
component.
Yeah.
Until we know more about what's going to happen.
Right.
So we
Flexibility
won't
is always
include
good.
anything
Let's
on the
refine what we're going to do on
site
that
design
corner.
because it's, yeah, we'll leave it. And it's already included. All right,
So are we done with the motion?
I think we're done with the motion. Can we ask
Okay.
Mark to read it all word for word? back to it.
I don't think we officially made the amendment to the original motion, so.
I'm
Yeah, we
about
did.
sure to
I think
get-
we did.
Well, it wasn't for.
It was.
Clarify.
No, Commissioner Paulson made I'm pretty sure he made a motion and I seconded it. And then we started wordsmithing.
You're talking
We
about. the-
we did approve adding per unit at my request. That one did
Are you
pass.
need a separate motion for all of the wordsmithing we've just did?
Yes.
Well, then I would make that motion to amend the original motion with all the changes we just made.
I'll second that motion, but I want to just have another discussion.
Okay.
Where
then
does that leave
I'll
us?
withdraw. We'll finish the discussion.
Where does that leave us with the parking along Mendota Avenue? Because that's on their plan now. And the
Yeah,
sidewalks
I think we'll revisit that in the next phase.
So do we need to add
Clarify.
clarification? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Clarify,
That's,
yeah.
yeah. There's
Add
flexibility
clarification in
within
this, that
Construction.
You
will-
can put it in number 12.
Yeah.
And just at the end of 12 and say that improvements, parking and sidewalk improvements along Mendota Avenue will be determined in a future phase or something like that.
there we go. There we go. My brain was full. I couldn't think of the words to say. Okay, then I will make a motion to amend the original motion as indicated on the screen here.
Is there a second?
That was a second.
So just to clarify, and I don't know if you had seen the change I'd made to number 9 when I displayed it previously. This just provides a rationale for why you're accepting this on private property, since we're bound to be asked in the future.
Yep.
Um,
It was on the screen when I said
I-
as amended, yeah.
And I just wanted to make sure that you saw it. I think I
What about the wording of the sidewalk is to be placed within a public access easement? Isn't that the wording we previously changed to say? Oh, I forget how Commissioner
Nine.
Paulson had
Sidewalk,
phrased it.
no, we had said that the sidewalk.
Abby said something like which
sidewalk will
requires a,
require a public access easement. Will require.
yeah, that's how we had it originally. Will require a public access easement. Okay.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then we have to vote on the whole
Now we
thing.
need to Vote on the main motion.
Okay.
That's what,
Yeah, and there was a motion and a second on that already.
yeah.
Right? All in favor of that?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Just
I want to say aye to that. Sorry.
Sleep.
Sorry, it's late.
It's late, but
to remain.
this is
But we
not,
did it.
this is nothing like Madison Plan Commission. I appeared there once at 11:30 on agenda item number 42.
I have to say, this is the longest I've ever spent on one agenda item. Okay. That takes us to item 6. Request to rezone various lots planned unit development.
Yeah, this should read request to rezone various lots from planned unit development. Sorry, there's a typo. So that was the first thing I was going to comment, was that there's the word from is missing.
Okay,
And so if I may,
go ahead.
so in summary, lots 84 through 149 and outlots 11 through 15 would be zoned SRH. Lots 74, 83 through 83 and 150 through 172 and outlots 16 through 18 would be zoned SRM. And outlots 9 through 10 would be zoned PR. The remainder of the lots in the first edition plat would remain zoned PUD because their dimensions do not comply with all the standards associated with any standard zoning classification. I would also add that the city collaborated with the applicant on the application and that we anticipate no public opposition. Therefore, we drafted the findings of fact so that you could take action at this meeting. That's my report.
This is Hanairo. This is in my district, so I'd be happy to move that we determine that the proposed zoning map amendment meets the criteria for approval in section 10-1034B and provides public benefits that outweigh potential adverse impacts of the proposed amendment, and that we recommend the Common Council approve an ordinance amending the zoning map.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Summers, second.
We got two. All right. You got one? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7.
This is Hanairo.
Pardon, it's 7, request for a conditional use permit for the stormwater site management facility from Conservancy to what the heck is it? Oh, from CUP.
Conservancy to, I'm sorry,
No.
a CUP to site
To
stormwater
grant-
management. Using conservancy.
To grant the conditional use permit.
Right.
Okay,
This is Hanairo. This is also in my district, and so I move that we direct staff to prepare a report of preliminary recommended findings, including a recommended motion for approving the conditional use, and to draft a resolution documenting the final action for consideration at the next meeting of the Plan Commission.
is there a second?
Paulson will second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, revisions to the city official map. Recommendation is that council adopt the new official map from staff.
So we made a number of changes following your review. The last time you saw this was in October. Then other committees, 3 other committees took a look at it, made some additional changes, collaborated with our colleagues in Parks and Rec. And then on December 17th, the council held a public hearing. There was an outpouring of public comment totaling 0. And but pursuant to state statute, the official map was referred to the Plan Commission for a final review prior to council considering adoption of the updated map.
Okay,
I would make a motion. We recommend approval back to the council.
is there a second?
Yeah, that's a second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries. I will call the meeting adjourned.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Stay warm.
Thank you.